There are stories that don't belong to the people who tell them. Stories that feel borrowed, like they've been lifted from another place, another history, another bloodline, and forced to wear a mask of wisdom. In the dim hours, when the feed keeps refreshing and the algorithm feeds you something you did not ask for, you stumble into them. A courtroom trial that never happened. A betrayal that feels familiar, but the names are wrong. A soldier from a country you have never seen becomes the father figure in a language you know too well. These are not coincidences. They are rehearsals. Moral plays slipped into your night so quietly you don't notice the replacement, until you do. And once you notice, you can't unsee it. The same cadence, the same parables, the same merciless justice wearing different faces. Something is testing how far a story can travel before you question who is writing it and why it was meant for you. They say every story is born somewhere. It carries the dust of its homeland, the cadence of its people, the pain and memory of those who lived it. But every so often, you stumble upon a story that feels displaced. A parable wearing someone else's skin. A tale that doesn't belong to the soil it's been planted in. Late at night, when the algorithm leads you down unfamiliar corridors, you click on a video without thinking. The thumbnail promises drama. The title glows with the weight of morality, betrayal, justice, redemption. A man's face stares back at you. Sir, military, foreign. His name, Ibrahim Traore. For most, just another stranger. But in these videos, he is no stranger at all. He is everywhere. A soldier turned prophet. A general turned saint. A borrowed hero retold in 100 tongues that were never his own. On Hindi and Urdu channels, his life unfolds not in the dust of Burkina Faso, but in the small living rooms of South Asia. Here, he is woven into bedtime stories. Here, he becomes the central figure in moral dramas that play out like courtroom rituals. Betrayal is punished. Truth is vindicated. Corruption is dragged into the light. Justice, swift, merciless, satisfying, always arrives before the final frame. But something feels wrong. The names are too neat. The morals too polished. The stories repeat with uncanny precision. Watch closely and you'll notice it's the same plot recycled. A man betrayed by a friend, a corrupt official exposed, a courtroom trial, a public reckoning. Only the masks change. Only the names shift. And always, without fail, Ibrahim Traore stands at the center. By here. This is not a figure known in South Asian folklore. He is not a character from Islamic history, not a saint, not a cultural ancestor. He is a living soldier, a political leader born of a coup in a land thousands of miles away. And yet, his face, his story, his aura of moral certainty has been imported, smuggled even, into another culture's nightly diet of morality plays. Some call it coincidence, opportunism by content farms seeking easy clicks. Dozens of channels churn out real stories, attaching his name like a keyword designed to hook the algorithm. But behind the veil of entertainment, suspicion grows. Who writes these scripts? Who funds their endless reproduction? Who decided this man's life would become the new parable for a region that never knew his soil? You begin to see the patterns. The same dramatic pauses. The same courtroom drama template. The same execution of justice. Swift, brutal, final. Repetition creates comfort, and comfort becomes conditioning. Soon, you don't question the justice. You expect it. Soon, you don't wonder whether the hero belongs in this tale. You simply accept his presence, like a character that was always meant to be there. And then the paranoia seed takes root. What if you're not watching folklore at all? What if you're watching a carefully engineered myth slip into your culture, disguised as harmless drama? A propaganda seed cloaked in the warmth of moral storytelling. You don't see the hand that plants it, but you feel its weight pressing into your subconscious. Every time you click another video, every time the algorithm serves you a new, real story, the déjà vu grows stronger. You start to notice the misfits, the small cracks in translation, the foreign details that don't belong. But instead of pulling away, you feel more drawn in. Because there's something intoxicating about a hero who doesn't belong to you, suddenly speaking your language, fighting your battles, defending your morals. It's like watching a ghost in someone else's mirror. The reflection stares back, but the face is borrowed. And you can't stop wondering, if a man can be rewritten into folklore this easily, if a story can be smuggled across continents and made to feel native, how many other stories have been rewritten before you ever had the chance to notice? That's when the unease takes hold. That's when you realize these are not bedtime stories at all. They are rituals. And you, without even knowing, have become part of the audience that keeps the ritual alive. It begins with a voice, calm, soothing, almost paternal. The kind of voice designed to make you trust, to make you stay. Over this voice, stock images and recycled footage flicker by. A gavel striking wood, a man in chains, a sudden execution, a family reunited in tears. You've seen these frames before in other videos, in other languages, with other names. But the rhythm is identical. Betrayal, judgment, punishment, redemption. Again and again, until the pattern itself feels sacred, like a prayer said too many times to question. What looks like creativity is, in truth, a factory line. Stories stitched together with the precision of an assembly plant. Characters swap faces, plots repeat, morals are recycled. Each upload is less an original tale and more a sermon pressed from the same mold. The goal isn't to tell the truth, it's to keep you watching. To hold you just long enough for the algorithm to recognize your pulse, your hunger, your attention. Look closely and you'll see the cracks in the machine. Words that don't quite fit the sentence. Odd phrases that echo translation software, artifacts of scripts written in bulk, passed through code, spat out in another tongue. Lines that sound human but don't feel human. It's as though the stories weren't written for you, but for something else, something that feeds on data, not meaning. And yet the repetition works. Each parable hits the same emotional nerves: betrayal punished, corruption exposed, justice served in swift and merciless ways. Courtrooms are not places of reason here, they are theaters of vengeance. Executions arrive without hesitation, as if violence itself has been woven into the moral fabric. The more you watch, the more normal it feels. The more normal it feels, the less you notice the conditioning. This is not folklore passed from elders to children. This is morality manufactured, optimized, mass-produced. Each video is a pill, carefully measured in dosage, slipped into your nightly routine until you swallow it without thought. The story of the borrowed hero suddenly doesn't look like an accident. It looks like part of the conveyor belt. His name, his face, his myth, fed into the machine, translated, duplicated, injected into living rooms across the world. And once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. The soothing voice, the familiar beats, the endless rhythm of justice served at just the right moment. It feels safe. It feels certain. But beneath that certainty lies a deeper question. If morality can be produced on demand, in infinite variations, how much of what you believe is truly yours, and how much has been manufactured for you? Stories never move alone. They are carried, pushed, pulled, delivered to us like whispers we mistake for our own curiosity. On YouTube, the carrier has no conscience. The algorithm does not care about truth, or culture, or even coherence. It cares only about heat, the spike of obsession, the drag of watch time, the measurable curve of retention. And in this economy, the moral parable is the perfect seed, short, sharp, endlessly repeatable. It spreads like scripture without saints, sermon without priest. Scroll long enough and you begin to see its hand at work. One video leads to another, each more polished, more gripping, more urgent than the last. The recommendation engine has been accused for years of guiding viewers into spirals, radicalism, conspiracy, manipulation. But here, the spiral feels subtler. It is not overt politics, not wild conspiracy. It is a gentle repetition of morals, betrayal punished, corruption erased, truth restored, delivered in the cadence of entertainment. And then the timeline begins to look less like coincidence. Ibrahim Traoré seizes power in late 2022, a sudden rise that makes headlines across Africa. At the same moment, hundreds of Urdu and Hindi channels surge with his name, his face, his borrowed myth. Not once or twice, but dozens of uploads appearing like synchronized echoes. The factory had found its missionary. The machine had chosen its prophet. and the algorithm carried him from continent to continent like contraband scripture. It is a fusion that feels almost seamless, soap opera pacing blended with political names, courtroom dramas fused with real leaders, parables stitched onto living figures. The line between entertainment and propaganda blurs, until the distinction no longer matters. If you feel the justice, if you crave the punishment, if you stay until the end, the mission is complete. Skeptics say it's simple opportunism, a chase for ad revenue by faceless content farms. But the deeper you watch, the harder it is to shake the suspicion. Are these just stories tuned for clicks? Or are they test balloons, narrative infiltrations, designed to see how easily a hero can be transplanted into another culture's bloodstream? If so, then the factory is no longer hidden. It has its missionary, and the sermon has already begun. What begins as a story soon feels like a ceremony. Each video unfolds like a trial, but one without ambiguity, without the slow weight of evidence or the fragile balance of doubt. Instead, the verdict is always certain, the punishment always merciless. Betrayal is discovered, justice is delivered, the guilty are cast out or destroyed. Over time, the rhythm stops feeling like entertainment and starts to feel like ritual. A ritual of justice, swift, absolute, unquestioned. Psychologists know the power of repetition. Show an audience the same pattern enough times and their instincts begin to bend around it. These videos are not simply telling parables, they are reprogramming responses. Every betrayal punished, every humiliation staged, every execution delivered at the precise climax, until the viewer no longer asks whether justice was fair, only whether it was final. The lesson sinks deeper than thought. Mercy is weakness, trial is delay, punishment is inevitable. The climaxes are striking in their sameness. Public humiliation, exile, or sudden death, ritual punishments replayed again and again, framed as moral victories. There is a fascination, even a satisfaction, in seeing order restored without hesitation. But beneath that satisfaction lies a darker echo, authoritarian fantasies disguised as folk wisdom. The dream of justice delivered outside the system, of power unconstrained by law, of vengeance accepted as moral truth. And the more the ritual repeats, the less foreign it feels. It slides into instinct, shaping not what you think but how you react. Each parable conditions you to expect, even crave, justice without due process. A courtroom becomes a stage, a sentence becomes a spectacle, a death becomes a moral. The story of the borrowed hero, the factory, the missionary, they were never about the characters at all. They were building something larger, something ritualistic, something that feels inevitable once you've watched it enough times. And once you realize you've been watching a ritual, not a story, the question is no longer what happens on screen. The question is what has already begun happening in your mind. You search for the hand that writes these stories, and find only absence. No face. No signature. No origin that admits responsibility. A living political figure has been transformed into folklore, his name stitched into parables across continents, and yet not a single author steps forward to explain why. What you find instead is silence, videos vanishing without explanation, titles rebranded overnight, early versions erased as if someone is scrubbing away the fingerprints. The story remains, but its trail has been carefully severed. Follow the money, and the pattern only grows darker. No disclosed ownership. No visible AdSense trail. Scripts appear without provenance, shuffled through anonymous channels, uploaded in bulk, distributed like contraband sermons. Every sign points to a network designed not to be seen. Factories without walls, writers without names, voices without bodies. And when viewers push back, when they question, when they notice the cracks, the comments thin out. Criticism is pruned, skepticism erased. What remains is a chorus of devotion, outrage, and raw emotion, amplified until doubt itself looks like heresy. This is the true paranoia. If stories can be hijacked so seamlessly, if a man can be borrowed from one continent and turned into moral scripture for another, then what other narratives have already been infiltrated? How many of the tales we consume late at night are not ours, not organic, but engineered and injected by unseen authors. We think we are choosing what to watch. In truth, we are swallowing stories that were chosen for us, stories that feel familiar enough to disarm us, foreign enough to lodge in our memory. And in this final turn, the viewer discovers they were never outside the ritual. They were the target all along. The borrowed hero, the factory, the missionary, the ritual, none of it exists without the borrowed audience, without you. You are the vessel the story needed. You are the black box's final author, carrying the tale forward each time you replay it in your head, unable to trace where it came from or why it feels like it was meant for you.